You're listening to Retro Reels, a show that looks back on films from time gone by and recalls the various events, trends, and perspectives that informed their creation. I'm your host, Hannah Walensky, here to guide you through a trip to the past via the silver screen. So, today is my mom's birthday, and to celebrate her birthday and Mother's Day and motherhood more generally throughout the month of May, this week I'll be rewatching a movie that makes me think of my mom. Not because what's depicted in it pertains much to my mom's life or personality in any particular way, but because she so enjoyed listening to the soundtrack to this film all the time when I was growing up, so often that I became familiar enough with it that moments after walking into the book room where she would be sitting at her desk reading, I would say, "Oh, are we listening to Philip Glass again?" Of course, given how many movies Mr. Glass has soundtracked over the years, that doesn't really narrow it down much, does it? The movie is The Hours, made in 2002, based on a 1998 novel that is in turn a tribute to Virginia Woolf's novel Mrs. Dalloway, first published on May 14th, 1925, making it 101 years old tomorrow at the time of this episode's air date. Wow. Regrettably, I do not have the time these days to take in 2 whole books for the purposes of my program. I wish I did, but I do not. So I'm mainly going off my viewing of The Hours and some basic knowledge about the related novels, which it mostly adapted pretty faithfully. Like the novel, the film features 3 stories from 3 different time periods featuring a single day in the lives of 3 different women, all moving in parallel, cutting between them continuously. We've got Virginia living in Richmond in 1923, Laura, a pregnant housewife living in LA in 1951, and Clarissa living in New York City in 2001. Following another nervous breakdown, Virginia's basically under house arrest because everyone is worried about what she'll do to herself if left to her own devices. Of course, these fears were not unfounded considering she drowned herself about 18 years later, an event that is also depicted in the film and basically serves as its prelude and coda. On this day, Virginia's begun writing Mrs. Dalloway. Her sister, Vanessa, visits from London with her children, and Virginia, who is desperate to get out of her suburban jail and return to some sense of normalcy in the city, attempts to follow them there, only to then be retrieved by her husband Leonard at the train station. They argue, with Leonard finally agreeing to move back to London. Laura's day starts with her attempting to bake a birthday cake for her husband, Dan. Next-door neighbor, Kitty, drops by to ask her to feed the dog for her because she'll be laid up for a couple of days getting surgery. As Laura comforts her, she kisses Kitty, which Kitty takes in stride but doesn't quite seem to understand, then never mentions again. Laura drops her son Richie off at a friend's and checks into a hotel, planning to take a bunch of pills and never wake up, but ultimately decides against it. She goes home and the family hosts a birthday dinner for Dan. Clarissa spends her day preparing a party for her friend Richard, a poet dying of AIDS-related illnesses who has won a Lifetime Achievement Award. Although Clarissa is a lesbian and has been with the same partner for a long time now, she and Richard had a fling back in college, and they've been kind of enmeshed with one another ever since. When she goes to Richard's apartment to pick him up for his party, he tells her he's only stayed alive for her sake, then throws himself from the window to his death. It's revealed at the end that Laura is Richard's mother, and that she abandoned her family shortly after his sister was born. Now, we can't talk about The Hours without talking about that soundtrack and its composer. Philip Glass, born in Baltimore in 1937, is widely regarded as one of the most influential composers of the late 20th century. He has written a lot of operas, musical theater works, symphonies, concertos, and chamber music pieces during his lifetime, but I would wager the average person probably knows his works best from the music that he's composed for major motion pictures, for which he has received 3 Academy Awards for Best Original Score. His score for The Hours is among those to receive that award. It might just be his most recognizable work, which is saying something for a guy whose sound is as distinctive as it is. That quality is why, anytime my mother was listening to him, I would always be able to identify the composer. So, what is it about the score? Well, it really embodies the cyclical and samey nature of the film's narrative action, the endless, unchanging ticking of the hours, as it were. It's constantly moving, but never really arriving or resolving, marked by these almost compulsively repeating arpeggios. It's also one of the main things keeping these stories from three time periods kind of tied together. Of course, there are other tricks like symmetrical shooting and visual and thematic rhyming that keeps them all connected, but it's also, in large part, that score and its cold, relentless motif, marching on and on and on. This film, to me, is all about being stuck, being trapped. Virginia is trapped by her mental illness, and more literally by Leonard, who, to be fair, is doing it out of love and concern for her, but whose supervision is nonetheless quite suffocating. Laura is trapped in a domestic prison, in the wife, mother, and homemaker role that a lot of middle-class women in post-war America were pushed into. And Clarissa is trapped in this codependent relationship with Richard, who reminds her of the time in her life she felt most alive, and whose complex medical and psychological needs subsume her own. And then there's this persistent lesbian subtext. Well, in Clarissa's case, it's overt, given she's in a long-term relationship with a woman, Sally. But in Laura's case, it is, in my opinion, strongly suggested. And as for Virginia, if you know anything about the life and times of Virginia Woolf, then you know she was totally gay. I mean, yes, she was married to and loved Leonard, but she literally straight up admitted she was not attracted to him or men in general, and it was with women that her passions were truly awakened. Even though this particular aspect of Virginia's life is not explored in the movie, because her relationship with Vita Sackville West, who was probably the biggest love of her life, didn't really take off until 1925 or so, and because adding that honestly would have defeated the purpose of showing how stifled and how suffocating her life was. Even though this is not included, when I see Virginia, I see a gay woman. You can disagree, but that's what I see. I may not be gay myself, but I know how hard it was and can still be for women to just be gay. The concept of compulsory heterosexuality, or comp-het, the idea that societal structures strongly compel women to seek out relationships with men, even though they aren't actually that into men, is essential to my reading of this film. The thing about comp-het is its effect is such that some women do not even fully realize that they are attracted to women, and even if they do, it might not occur to them that being with a woman is an option, and even if it does, they may not be able to do anything about it. Comp-het is the reason why a gay woman can get married, have children, and only later in life realize, oh wait, I'm actually just a lesbian and have been all this time. And by that point, she may not even want to bother to act on it. And it doesn't mean she can't love men either, or that she doesn't want to have children. It's complicated, you know? Anyway, I can totally understand, and I continue to see examples of comp-het play out among women to this day. And it's not that women are somehow especially oblivious to their own desires, it's that the messaging and the sense of obligation to pursue a heteronormative life that is ingrained in women is so powerful that it can impede her ability to even properly reflect on herself and what she wants. And in this context, a reading of Laura as a gay woman stuck in a role that she does not want, but has been presented as the only option, and not just the only option, but a wonderful and idealized option, one that many women aspire to, it just makes good sense to me. Clarissa is the modern, liberated gay woman, the only one of the three who was truly free to take another path. And Virginia lived in Victorian times, so I mean, there you go. Really, she was kind of fortunate because other Victorian lesbians probably didn't get to have as many affairs with women as she did. And then there's this other through line in the film about motherhood. It's implied Clarissa had her daughter by a donor. Virginia allegedly wanted children, but Leonard said no, citing her mental instability, which, yeah, probably the right move considering she offed herself, and that would have been horrible for her children to have to deal with. Laura comes close, but decides not to kill herself. What she decides to do instead is up and leave her family. They say it's the worst thing a mother can do, she says in the film's final scenes. The book that the movie is based on doesn't spell it out quite like that, by the way, so that was a directorial decision. What compels a mother to abandon her children? I know that there are times I'm so fed up with the day-to-day grind of taking care of my son that I just want to walk out the door and keep walking and never stop. But I refuse to believe that that is abnormal. And you hear stories from time to time of mothers walking out. It's always treated as a much more grave transgression than a father walking out, which is no less traumatizing, and yet paternal abandonment is the only one framed as a joke, like, oh, he went out to buy cigarettes one day and never came back. But mom doing it is life-ruining, and the impact that had is shown in the ruins of Richard's life and its tragic end. The thing is, though, for Laura, leaving is not just an escapist fantasy like it is for me. It's her only alternative to ending it all. With all of that said, you might be wondering, what does it mean that your mother liked this movie, Well, mainly I think it just means she's a fan of Virginia Woolf. You know how real life is. It's seldom as interesting as art. It's true that my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she isn't a closeted lesbian, and as far as I can tell, she never seemed to feel terribly trapped by her domestic life. In fact, she really likes being at home, among all her books, maybe more than anything else. Not that I don't think she would have been happy living some other way, but I think she felt more or less fine with the arrangement. Apart from liking the soundtrack and the author the movie is about, I can say with some certainty that a large factor contributing to my mother's enjoyment of The Hours was its cast. My mom and I are both the kind of people who can enjoy a mediocre or even kind of a bad movie a lot more, just because it has some actor or actress in it that we really like. And there are so many actresses to like in this movie, just about all of them, actually. The big one for her is probably Julianne Moore. She always likes Julianne Moore, but there's also some notable appearances by Claire Danes and Toni Collette, who are some all-time underrated and really excellent actresses. The not nearly so underrated actresses, Nicole Kidman and Meryl Streep, are also very watchable, although they pretty much can always deliver a good performance, especially Streep, who has arguably one of the most consistent careers of any American actress ever, maybe of all time. So I don't mean to gloss over them, they are great. It's just I don't see the other ones quite as often, so I get more excited when they appear. And I know this is all a big part of why The Hours appealed to my mom, too. The Hours is also, like so many of the movies I watch for retro reels, very much of its time. Prestige literature was kind of having a moment in movies in the aughts, and this falls somewhere toward the middle to tail end of that trend, which started sometime in the 90s and included such hit films as The English Patient, The Virgin Suicides, and Pride and Prejudice. And more peripherally, you had movies like Romeo plus Juliet and Shakespeare in Love. And that's just the American pictures. There was a similar string of films based on major works of English literature made in the UK around this time as well. I would say it ended somewhere around 2007 with Joe Wright's adaptation of the Ian McEwan novel Atonement, which is a significant movie to me too, come to think of it, but for other reasons that I might get around to sometime in the fall. Anyway, all of this is to say, The Hours is a perfectly worthwhile movie. Is it a masterpiece? I wouldn't go that far. But it is a standout among those prestige literature adaptations. I think it endures in the memory. I would call it a pretty significant cultural moment in a similar vein as the 2004 adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. Kinda corny? Yeah. A bit overwrought at times? Yes, just a bit. But it's quality entertainment. It's a shining example of the Miramax production house doing its Miramax thing. And there's really no other way to adapt these old novels besides turn the drama dial up to 11. That's just the tone, the type of register you need to be in for something like this. I certainly wouldn't dissuade you from watching the movie. It's good. That said, I still think you're best off reading the book. And by the book, I mean the original. The original. The 101-year-old classic, Mrs. Dalloway. That's all I have for you guys today. I'm Hannah Belinsky. Thank you for tuning in to Retro Reels, and I hope you'll join me again next time on another look back on the way things were.